Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I am here with the rest of my December cards, tags, and more kit. I have my two ephemera packs still, well, my two sticker packs, I guess, not really ephemera, but my two sticker packs here. I'll be using some of those wreaths. I have the cardstock left, and with the 3 sheets of pattern paper I had left, I cut them up into 4 squares. So each sheet is now 4 3 by 3 inch squares. And I am going to use these sheets, use these pattern papers, and create a few Christmas ornaments. Now, regular paper ornaments probably wouldn't have a very good lifespan, I wouldn't think. So I have these 4-inch clear ornaments that pop apart, and I'm going to make my paper ornaments and then put them inside my clear plastic ones. First things first, I am just going to figure out which cardstock I want to use with which pattern paper. And then I am going to cut down my pattern paper and get my die cuts out. So there are the pieces I am going to be working with. I just cut everything down so that they are all 3 by 3 inch squares, and I laid them out how I'll be putting them together. I am going to use 3 different sized circles on the one that has that more golden paper with it. I am going to use just 1 circle on the lighter ones, and then I am using a doily die for the ones that has the maroonish cardstock in it. And everything is cut up and ready for assembly. All of these are going to be going together in the same fashion. I will fold my pieces in half, add my glue my halves together, and work my way all the way around. But I am not going to finish them. I'm not going to close off my ornaments yet. I will not be gluing them shut because I will still need to work how I'm going to hang them inside the clear ornament, since my clear ornaments are 4 inches and these aren't even quite 3 inches. The biggest one's not even quite 3 inches, so I will be suspending them inside the clear ornament. Alright, I know this video kind of starts out with a voiceover, but I'm trying to switch things up a little bit. Not just to switch things up, but because sometimes, and by sometimes I mean all the time, when I'm doing voiceovers, I don't necessarily remember what it was I was doing at the time of the recording, and it's not like there's weeks and weeks in between. I just forget. I get distracted. I have ADHD, so that doesn't really help me remember the thing I was doing. Anyhow, so I'm just going to kind of talk through this, hope it works out, try to get things a little more streamlined for myself. The biggest reason that I had been doing voiceovers was just because it was marginally easier, very marginally easier to get my house quiet for just a short period of time for the voiceover instead of, say, like on and off while working. I don't necessarily like to get up and let them know when I am or am not recording. Sometimes I just want to push record and go. We're gonna try that anyhow. See how it works. But today it's relatively quiet here. So I'm just gonna give this a go. Experiment a little, hope for the best, hope that I get everything good to go. I don't know for sure how it will work. I hope it works. I just grabbed up any ink here, and I'm just using a mini distress pad, mostly to use it up. I don't really use the minis very often. I don't have very many of them. They're just, well, they're too small for me. I don't particularly like working with things that small. I mean, I know they were created for travel. And I'm just inking up the chipboard words a few at a time. I think that ink pad might actually be almost dry. This is that embossing powder from this month's mixed media kit, and I'm going to use just that. I think just that. I might grab up some of the, either some Lindy's that have more of that transparent look to them, or some distress glazes. I'll see what colors I have. I'm going to kind of wing it here and just like do this with them. Don't need to necessarily get out a, maybe if I could hold it the right way, this would go easier for me. There we go. Just kind of add some to them along the bottoms and the little scrolly flare. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Just doing that. It's not heavy. I don't think I want a completely covered surface. I'll see how it looks. If I get any where I don't want it, I'll just use a small brush and kind of remove the extra. And I think that'll do her for my little chipboard words here. Maybe not touch the last one I did. Let's see if I can't kind of, so you can see. I really kind of like that little gradient-ish like effect I get there when I just add a translucent color on here on top of a solid color. All right. So back to my little ornaments. I have not closed them up yet. This will go like so when I get there. I left them open so I could add how they're going to go in. This is the first one I was just playing around with, kind of trying to work things out before turning the camera back on. This is, it's like costume jewelry. I mean, I guess if you want, you could use a real gold chain. I am not real gold chain in a decoration type of rich, so costume jewelry. And I made it a little extra longer, or I made it a little bit longer than the 4 inches because they're 4-inch ornaments. And that would, just so that I could have a little playroom for centering it before trimming off any excess. I did bring a few ideas with, here, this is my little costume jewelry thing. I just kind of tore off a bit. It's all tangled up, but I just tore off a bit of the chain on it and added that to the center. So you could do that. You could get some fine chain to use if you wanted to create the illusion that it was suspended in there, floating in there. You could get some fishing line. I know this fishing line has a blue hue to it. I think that's because it goes in water, so the fish can't see the line because it looks like the sky. I don't know. This has a little bit of a blue hue to it, but you actually really can't see it. I mean, it's right here. You can see it a little bit over the darker areas, but over light areas, not so much. So you could use fishing line or just that invisible thread that you can get in the sewing section of stores. I assume that is still a thing. I never had luck with it. Not it being invisible, but actually using it. Embroidery flosses. You have your regular standard cottons. There are, you could use a metallic version in however many you wanted. The full 6 strands, 2. I would probably do more than 1, maybe, for stability, but and they come in a variety of colors. Some are even variegated. And actually this one is actually, I think, would probably work with it. I'm not using it. I just was trying to pull examples out to get you thinking. I mean, you could use regular sewing thread. There's even metallic sewing machine thread, if you just wanted to use that. There's also, they're kind of satiny embroidery flosses. So they have that little bit of shine to them too. Let me see if I can find a metallic-y satiny one. Metallic-y satiny. Kind of like, I guess that'll work. So they have a little bit of shine to them as well. Don't you love my organization? It's great. I don't have the patience to wrap them around. I don't have the patience to put them all on this and then store them in a nice, neat and tight. Yeah, no, that's not happening. What else did I have? Fishing line, chain. Oh, there it is. You could use pins. This is a hat pin, undecorated. It has a little like pinhead at the top for catching your beads if you are using it for beading or whatever like that. Even has a safety cap on it. Granted, this is more than 4 inches, so I will be chopping it down when I get to that point, because I am using this one for my triple decker thingy-mabobber here. And then there was another thing I had. I gotta find where I put them. Oh, you can also just get the straighter, shorter, like little beading pins. I have no idea what they're really called. I suppose you could probably also go and get just needles, but I don't think they come in 4 inches necessarily. But oh, that one got bent. You got some needle options, and I think these are only 3 inches I have right here. But I just grabbed up a few things to talk about to kind of give ideas of what can be used for the suspension of the inner ornament. So I am using, on this one, I have my little costume jewelry chain. I am going to move these out of my way. For my triple decker here, I was planning on using this needle. Let me think here. I'm going to get these out while I'm thinking about it. My handy side cuts. They're cheap ones. My husband actually let me steal them, so they must not be. They're not heavy duty or not, and just enough. They're not up to his standards, I guess. I don't know. And then for this one, I am going to use fishing line. Now, I wasn't sure, so I experimented on a length of fishing line, because it is plastic, how well it might work with a hot glue gun. Because I did just use a hot glue gun for this. I am using a hot glue gun to attach things, and that's because then all I have to do is wait for it to cool, not wait for it to dry. And it actually, I don't know if it melted and then reformed, but it doesn't seem to have weakened it any, if you can see there. Just gonna, So for mine, I think the hot glue might work. I hope so. Back to these. Now, I was thinking, I really was thinking, did I put that away? I did. to add a little bit extra something just to these edges, I was thinking of just going to lightly put some embossing ink right on the edges of these. Obviously I will not be heating them up while holding them together because I don't want them to turn into giant chunks, but it is a little bit easier to ink them and get the embossing powder on holding them together like this, and then I'll make sure that they're apart before I give them the heat gun blast. My little edges all done up on my pieces. I'm not really worried about even coverage, just a little something extra on them. Cover up the cut edge, especially since these are they have white cores in them, so the edges, even though it wasn't thick, it was still showing the white a little bit. I did my triple decker one here in that Holly Berry Red Gold from Lindy's. I did this one in just the bubbly from the mixed media kit. And this one I had not done when I was experimenting with it. I want to add something to them, although I may have to kind of like reheat this and remove my wreath. I'm just going to use some white pearl metallic paint. My edges, it's not on heavy. This seems to not have a problem. It's still very strong. I can't snap it, so maybe I will use hot glue in a couple of areas when I use my fishing line on this one. Give myself like 6 inches or so, just so that I have some wiggle room. And I'm just going to oh no, that would be so much better than hot glue. I am glad I thought of that at the last minute, because this likes to keep trying to curl back up. It's been on that spool for I don't know how long. It actually was never used, so I don't know exactly how long it might have been there. But I am just going to get a piece, only enough for the solid so that there's not any sticky in the little holes on the edge. Make sure that line is in there. Not trying to be off-centered, at least not trying to be off-centered too much. It just sort of suspends on that nearly invisible fishing line. Nearly invisible. Now, this one I had kind of thought about seeing how much space I would have lengthwise, height on the height. I'm actually going to cut it off right now just because of adding my beads, so I know when to stop. So I have one of the small gold jewelry beads at the top of my pin, and I am going to double this up. I'm going to get things ready. I'm trying to make sure that it's staying tight against that top edge of the paper. I kind of have to work everything together. I want to add I put my glue, my art glitter glue along the edges and a little bit there so that when I seal it up, the paper will seal, because I don't want it too bulky. So I really should have thought this through on where I was angled. I'm going to use the hot glue there just in the center to hold my pin. And while it's still hot and the glue's still wet, close things up. And then in between the sections, I am going to put the larger beads. And then at the end, I added a little extra hot glue just so I would be able to kind of get that in place. And there we have it. Little fiddling, separating the edges, trying to separate them equally, but that one is together. My fishing line one, I think, is together. I may drop some beads or something onto those, but I am going to just go over my little wreaths here real quick. And those were real simple because I did this. I got my chains on in an area I wasn't working on. Just got the two halves that I did want to work on. And well, you can take off this little foam that came on them if you want. I put a little dollop on and a dollop on so that I can kind of aim so that it's just at the edge of the wreath, like so, which is why I do it this way, to make sure that my hot glue goes down to the wreath and catches between the edge of my ornament and the backside edge of the wreath. And I'm just going to add these to all of the areas that have the solid cardstock. This ended up, it was exactly, basically, more or less exactly like two beads too tall. Apparently, well, laying it out on here was harder for me to judge exactly because they rolled. And I actually, all I did not want to take it apart and redo it. I just used my side cuts here, and just clipped off the top and bottom bead that I had on there. And then used my hot glue to kind of tack it in place to start. And then I added some 3D matte gel to make sure it had a good hold. I've been giving some thought of some alternate or some extra decoration for it. I don't want to, obviously I don't want to lose the transparency of the ball or of the ornament, but I'm thinking I might want to add a transparent medium on the inside, like a crackle glaze. This isn't glued into place, I was just centering it. And I will do the same thing to hold my chains in place. I'll just put a little hot glue to hold it, and then I will add some matte gel and let that matte gel sit up completely to make sure that it stays held. Then for this one, I was already practicing on the top, and it should be dry, I think. Let me make sure here. Yeah. I decided to use those little Frank Garcia beads that I had pulled out. And I'm only stringing 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. All I did is use some diamond glaze. It's clear, it's strong, and this was actually the really important part. It's kind of thin, it's relatively thin. So it worked well. I kind of laid it the best I could and added some to that fishing line and to the paper ornament. Got some on that fishing line, and then let my beads drop down into place. I don't know how well you can see. I let them just drop down into place. And then after that, and this is why the thin was important, I just aimed above those beads on that fishing line and added a little bit more and lit that diamond glaze just run in those holes down the fishing line. I added the Holly Jolly to this one. I don't want to move it around too much. I added the Holly Jolly words to that, and I wrapped them around and just tacked them into place where they came across the edges of those little doilies. Kind of got things set up here. The crackle didn't really crackle, probably because I put it on so thin, and well, it's on plastic. I don't know, it didn't crackle. So I decided I needed to improvise, and I started playing around with different pastes, transparent pastes. There's some, I'm just going to kind of go over, this crushed crystals was in March's mixed media kit this year. So there was that, and it dries transparent just with the shine. And then there was this smaller jar just in September's from Cosmic Shimmer. This Cosmic Shimmer texture paste was just in September's. I had partials. I do this a lot. If I have partials, even if they're different brands, if they're relatively similar, I will just mix them up so that I can use them both up. Don't have to switch products out in an unfortunate time. So I just mixed them all up. It's mostly the Jewel Effect paste, but it's all pretty much the same. They were pretty much the same sparkliness. Okay. And then this is the one that I had put that crackle paint in, and you can see it kind of right there. The areas like talk about bad time for reflections. All right, I'll just try to turn this off real quick and hope I have enough light from my little one over there. There, in between those two light sources, the reflection from my window and my light, you can see there, come on. You can see where it didn't dry transparent in the thicker areas. So I added in that mix of that Finnabair and that Cosmic Shimmer. Ugh. Okay. Hope that didn't fade out too much. I kind of had to go on the other side of the microphone to get to that light switch there. All right. So then I used a brush, and I very, very roughly, I brushed it in first, and then just dabbed the brush on it to roughen it up so there wouldn't be brush marks. And I'll go over it because I have to do the other half. And then I sprayed in the Cocktail Party that was in this month's mixed media kit, in that triple pack of mica sprays. And then I let it dry and soak in, and it actually, I think it soaked in a lot more than maybe it would normally, because I happened to do it right before we got rain, and it was really very humid for a couple days, and it took longer than normal to dry. So it really got in there because I just let it air dry. I didn't want to heat dry on a plastic surface there. Same thing here, same process, except I used pastes that they dry transparent. They say they dry transparent, and I'm gonna go with, for the most that they do. You can see my unevenness in the gaps in there a little bit. This one was for my stash I've had for a while. Snowflake paste, or the snowfall paste, is similar to what I had used. I know there's another one and I can't think of it right now. I think Prima has one that's I think Prima's is called snowflake paste, if they still have it. But it's really very similar to the Distress Snowfall. And that's what I used in this one. And this I actually sprayed both the Shiny Bauble and the Merriment in. And so you can see it's kind of shiny bobbly-ish up here, more of that teal color. And then down on the bottom you can see more of the green from the Merriment. And then just let that air dry. But to solve my problem for getting a little bit of a glazy, frosted look in here, I used this mix here, and I only very lightly dabbed it around the outer edge there and left the majority of the center untouched. That's how I finally worked that out. And then carefully worked my way around in the same process here. So this one is ready for assembly. It will look something like that, I think. I think it's ready. Just a little thing like so. And I was thinking of how I wanted to put them together. And when you do this, make sure, I cleaned up these as I went along. I didn't want to have to try to struggle with it too much afterwards. So, I think for the assembly, because it dries so very clear, I am going to use some diamond glaze and carefully, just on one of the sides, or one of the halves, put my diamond glaze along the ridge here. I trimmed off the excess chain off of these after it had cooled down and that 3D matte gel had dried. So this one is in place, but I'm still kind of thinking about maybe adding a little bit to the tops and the bottoms of something. I don't know what. Something though. I may go use glitter. That's a scary prospect, but I may go a glitter route there. And then this one with the fishing line, I just use, oh actually I haven't done it yet. I have it clipped in place. Don't think that I'm going to use hot glue on it, because hot glue does dry, or does cool down in a kind of a frosted. So I think here I am also going to use the diamond glaze and really kind of hope for the best here, because I'm also because it's fishing line and it's so thin, I am going to hope that I can also use the other half to close it up and hold everything in place. Is that making sense at all to anybody but me? I'm just gonna go over real quick how I did these halves because I have a feeling they might take a little more time to dry again. And I just use a beat up old brush that's short and, you know, relatively stiff bristled, and just kind of plop it in. Plop it in. I grabbed a palette knife that had one of the pointier tips and just scraped along the edge like so, just to make sure that I would still be able to stick everything together. That's the idea behind it all, that it will still stick together in the end. I'm gonna go off that direction over my trash can and give a light spray just to make sure that all of that glitter paste is covered. And so you can see, I made sure it was all covered. There's not really a lot, about so much to run around, and for this start of it, I just go like so and roll it around a bit until all of that little bit of extra that had puddled up in the bottom is kind of spread out a bit. Set them like that and let the excess drip out on its own, and then after a while, so that air can get to it, and after all the excess liquid is done, I will turn it over. This I didn't put on as thick because I didn't have that glaze that I was kind of trying to camouflage, that crackle paint on this one. And then on this one, after I had that in, I grabbed up the Shiny Bauble and the Merry Mint. I'll do one at a time and show you how I sprayed it. I just kind of try to aim for half and half ish, and then kind of let them run together with that little puddle that does occur. I did that with the Shiny Bauble, and then the Merry Mint like so, and then I just, you know, rolled them around a little bit. Made sure I had coverage in each color that I wanted. Just tried to get them to blend around the line between them. And then just like that one, flip it over after a little bit, after that's had time to kind of drip out. Then I will turn them over so they can get more airflow and finish drying. I figured it out. I found this was from, what did I write on here, May 19 mixed media kit, from the May 2019 mixed media kit. So you can see how often I use glitter. There's barely any out of here, but I think that it matches the glitter. It's chunkier than the glitter on the embellishments, but I think it matches pretty good with the chain, and I'm hoping it'll kind of bring everything together. I have an idea. I don't know if it worked, but I have one. I'm not sure much of anything I've attempted this month has worked out. It's just one of those months. I have a bunch of good ideas. Really horrible execution with them though. We're gonna do the scary part. We're gonna set an open container of glitter out, and I don't want it everywhere. I kind of have a plan to make it look like the chains are coming out of it, like they're little mounds and the chains are coming out of it. Now I have a couple of ideas, and I think I can work on the first two that I have glued together in this session. So I'm going to use the gilded on here. This is going to be my experiment. I'll experiment with the foundry waxes on here so you don't have to. So you don't have to wonder what would happen to plastic. This could be a disaster. It might not be. If I think it's getting too hot before the foundry wax is starting to set, then I'll stop. But we'll see together how these plastic ornaments will hold up. Personally, I wouldn't use a heat gun. I wouldn't do that again. So I don't think the foundry waxes or anything that would have to be heated to set like that would be the best choice, and this is why. So there, I experimented so you don't have to. You can see it did start to deform, and even on low heat it was just really not. Finnebear waxes would probably be better, or any of those types of waxes that are just rub-on. Paint would work. Whatever you want, nothing at all. You could even do glitter. I just don't want to put glitter out in the world. Just don't want to. Alright, it's been over 24 hours, and as I said, my first halves did take quite a bit of time to dry just because my room is cooler than the rest of the house. So my second halves, you can see the difference between dry and not dry yet. Just gonna keep letting it sit. Hopefully I will have pictures by the end, but I'm this many days away, one hand away from having to have this ready to go. So I still need time to edit. So yeah, that's where those are. These weren't planned anyhow, but we'll just call them bonus ideas, I guess. And maybe there'll be pictures if they decide to dry in time. But I will just focus now on my original ones that I had originally planned. There was this one that I had already finished, and it has dried together. I can't find my little hooks, but I don't imagine y'all need a tutorial on how to hang an ornament anyhow. So that goes with that. I'm getting there. So there's this one. Hopefully we'll be able to get these in an area for pictures without too much reflection off of them. Cross your fingers, they're clear and reflective. I did not pick the easiest things to photograph. This one is together, and after I had it together, I kind of decided I wanted to just add a little bit on the outside. So I just brushed on some matte gel. You can use whatever glue you want that would stick to plastic. I like the gels because it won't run, so it stayed where I put it. And then I just added more of this glitter. Only knocked the bottle over once, so I guess I was doing okay. And I just have it sitting here on its side while that gel finishes setting up. And then for this one, because I do have those words in there, I don't really want to cover it up. I just want to add a little bit up here. So I have brushed on some clear gesso. So I'm just going to use some vintage gold metallic wax and just put it on where I have that gesso and call it good there. So there you have it. I have these 3 doubled ornaments inside ornaments that I created using the papers and the cardstock, some of the embellishments, some of the chipboard words that were in this month's Cards, Tags, and More kit. So simple, smaller ornaments made from the papers with some embellishments inside some larger clear plastic ornaments and whatever extra blings you may want. This one I used some of the busier pattern paper, cardstock, a doily die instead of just a plain circle, added holly jolly in there, and just kept the outside simple, just adding that little bit of wax just now to that the topper. This one where I have a triple layer ornament inside, I have just some glitter paste in along the edges and the tops. For this one, giving a frosted look around here. This does have the Tim Holtz foundry wax on it, but this plastic at least does not take the heat well, so I honestly wouldn't suggest using embossing powders or such on plastic, because by the time that's warm enough to melt the plastic or set the foundry wax, it also melts this plastic. So those are the 3 that I have finished for this. And then at some point in time, I'll just sort of fake what these might look like, at least plain. I have some glitter pastes inside, some of the distress mica stains from this month's mixed media kit in here. I may or may not add more mediums and such on the outside, but for now I'm just concerned about, I'm more concerned that they'll ever dry back here. So, but just a few ideas of what you can make for yourself using a couple of this month's kits. You could do the same thing with the scrapbooking kit and the papers and the embellishments in that. So hopefully this gave you some ideas of what you can make using this month's supplies. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up, and feel free to share this video. Thank you, and I will see you again next week.